once I'd had at it with the knife that came with the prunes, it flushed really easily. You're listening to the Beat Motel Podcast, and we need to warn you that we like to use words like fuck, shit, and syndiclus, butty scrutux, angry flap, and foot biscuits, and we don't often bleep those words out, apart from because we're not complete animals. But if you understand that and you like music, then listen on.
You must have heard the story about a certain person in Brighton, I won't name who had he used to tell stories about his bowel movements, and he once had a shit so hard that he had to cut it off with a bread knife. Welcome to Beat Motel.
Welcome to what I promise actually is a music podcast. Oh man, you had to cut it off. I mean, really like waddled to the toilet with it sticking out like he'd grown a monkey's tail or something.
I think he waddled to the kitchen with it.
Is that why he got fired from his job as a teacher?
He should have not gone for the he shouldn't have gone for the kitchen. He should have at least gone for the staff room. Kitchen. Yeah,
gone from the staff room to the home ec kitchen. Right, come on, let's talk about music just for the fuck of it. Let's have a song. This is Sam's riff of the week.
Well, there's many a strange impulse out on the plains of West Texas. There's many a young boy who feels things he can't comprehend. And a small town don't like it when somebody falls between the sexes. No small town don't like it when a cowboy has feelings for men.
So who was that?
That was Orville Peck, and Willie Nelson is also on that track later on with the great, not very catchy titled, "Cowboys Are Frequently Secretly Fond of Each Other."
I love the title.
I love the title. I love his voice.
Oh yeah, silky as anything.
Yeah, he had that bass Roy Orbison, Elvis Presley sort of delivery. And I loved his last album with Bronco, I think it was called. It was really, really good. And I remember I was doing one of my rare sort of solo trips, and like a few tracks of it had been uploaded to the internet on one of the streaming services, or the streaming service that I use. And I just was sat there going, wow, this is like, I don't know. I love his voice. I think it's like the best voice in contemporary music at the moment.
I've said before when we've talked about country in many tens of episodes ago, I will end up getting into country. And to be honest, this kind of thing gets me closer because the story of the song is I knew that if you chose it, it wouldn't be homophobic, but the way it's just sort of addressing. And also, Willie Nelson wouldn't have anything to do if it was homophobic either, I wouldn't think. But the angle it's sort of coming at is, I can't quite figure it out because I've only heard that 30 seconds, but it sounds sort of like the classic storytelling kind of country and western thing.
Well, he is a gay man. He used to be in punk bands apparently.
Well, he's not American, is he? He's
Canadian. He's a Canadian.
South African. I mean, South Africa and Canada, they are both countries. They're similar in so much they've both got letters in the name.
He's Canadian, I'm sure.
Wikipedia says born Johannesburg.
Oh, fuck. I had no idea.
No, it then says origin Canada.
Oh, maybe his parents are Canadian. Maybe
I had friends with somebody once whose mum was Dutch and her dad was American, but she was born in the UK. And I said, I did genuine questions. Does that make you British? And she said, if a cat has kittens in an oven, it doesn't make them muffins. That's always stuck with me. It's what, I sort of see where she's coming from, but just what a strange way to express that.
But that sort of denies. I don't know. I don't think that's not a. I don't know. I don't agree with that. If you were born in a place, you are of that place in some way. And
it's going to influence you in some part of your life, isn't it? Unless you move away when you're like 3 days old or something.
There is a whole quite well known part of sociological theory called third generation kids, and that term is used to describe people who grow up in cultures that are not their parents.
Well, like you,
yeah. And it tends to be a term thrown at more middle class people who sort of move around quite a lot. But okay, he's South African.
So that was a bit of an aside, but also he wears a mask.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, it's a gimmick. But the thing is that his first album, he did a little bit of that sort of low baritone sort of really sort of great sort of old school. I would say sort of 1940s. 1950s rockabilly sort of almost delivery, and he did a little bit, but then he did a little bit of indie singing. The indie singing just killed that first album for me. The second album is astonishing, and yeah, he does that. He does the storytelling, but he's also part of, I think, a new new wave of country musicians who are reclaiming, in a way, country music as a working class alternative form of expression that isn't based around that sort of Nashville, pop music in everything apart from twang. For us,
I've said it before that the country is a real challenge to me because of when I grew up. So 80s country was in a bad place.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It really was.
But this is the thing, is that, I can't stand a lot of hip hop, and I can't stand a lot of hip hop partly because of the era of hip hop that I grew up in the radio.
Yeah,
the 90s, the late 90s hip hop stuff, when it, at that point when it started getting really, started to replace rock music as the pop idiom, I would argue, in the late 90s, was also at the point where they started to, I don't know, it felt like there was hip hop became the cock rock of, it's sort of, so all the interesting stuff got buried underground, in the same way that, a late 80s metal, you can either go the cock rock guys like Motley Crue, or you can go sort of the thrash world and the death metal world. And the stuff is always more interesting in the underground. Pop music has a way of becoming ubiquitous and dark.
Well, it homogenizes, doesn't it? And it sands off all the sharp edges. And for a lot of people, like you and I, the rough edges are what we like. That being said, the production on that Orville Peck clip is beautiful. Really nice. Sometimes I think, regardless of genre, whether I like it or not, you have to admit that to have just a few seconds, because it's so well defined.
Yeah.
Well, there's many a strange impulse out on the plains of West Texas.
Wow, I love the flange on the guitar. Very cool. Okay, well, thanks for showing that up my ears. I've got to do a bit of explaining for the next one. I've mentioned
play it and then explain.
Okay, listen to the lyrics.
I wear women's underwear, and then I go to strike a pose in my full-length mirror. I cross my legs just like a queer, but my libido is strong when a lady is near. Yeah, oh, what defines a straight man straight? Is it the boxer in the brief or a 12-ounce steak? Nah, I tell you what, a woman loves most. It's a man who can slap but can also stroke. Going in the...
Is that Francis Black?
No. Shit. Good God. That's not expecting you to say that at all. That what makes you say that?
I don't know. It's the way his high delivery sounds similar to Francis Black when he
Oh
goes
man,
up there.
I can see it. Two humans in my life. You and my wife both had this ability to like if there was a Cupid's arrow for like musical influences, well, not Cupid's arrow, but like a way of just going like a lightning bolt. You two both have that skill.
What was that? That was cool.
It is quite cool. It's a band called Mother Mother, and this is, I mentioned in a previous episode that my daughter's
they are Canadian.
These are Canadian, and this is one of the songs that Izzy just plays. My daughter plays all the time, and I started listening to the lyrics. I was thinking the lyrics are actually quite interesting, and also the production is very, very good. It's just interestingly done. There's a group of bands coming that are about at the moment who aren't doing production in the normal way. They're sort of picking elements out of a song and focusing on that. So whereas something like this would always be the synth first or guitar first, sometimes there'll be something quite unusual that comes out as the lead instrument. But I want to kind of run through the lyrics with you because, for one thing, my daughter's got this real can't separate the art from the artist thing. So she'll looks into people and she looks into their ethics and whatever, which for a 12-year-old I think is really interesting. So it's I wear women's underwear, and then I go and strike a pose in my full length mirror. I mean, why wouldn't you? The next one I'm not sure about. I cross my legs just like a queer. Now, the use of the word queer in anything modern is an owned word, kind of, isn't it? It's not an offensive word. It's, if you're going to say you like a queer, then I think it's lost its negative connotation, especially for millennials and younger people.
It depends who says it.
Well, very good point. But where it gets interesting is the next line is, but my libido is strong when a lady is near. So it's just like cross-dressing. And then the next line is, what defines a straight man as straight? So, yeah, I can see where it's going. It's kind of quite fun, actually. It's quite a fun kind of play on gender identity and sexuality and lack of definition, which is something that I think much younger generations, the lines are more blurred, which is a very, very positive thing.
But blurred lines in like an interesting sort of challenging way to the West, not blurred lines as in a date rapey song.
Yes. Right, so the next line. So what defines a straight man straight? Is it the boxer in the briefs or a 12-ounce steak? I do not know what that means. And I thought I'd raise it with you because you have a filthier mind than I do, and you tend to know these things clearer
Boxer in the brief or a 12-ounce steak.
And while you're pondering that, the last two lines just goes completely nuts. I tell you what a woman loves most. It's a man who can slap but can also stroke. I do not know what that means. I assume he's
I think that's quite dirty, that bit.
Is it? I assume if his the mention of steak, I was thinking he's now talking about meat preparation.
Do you stroke or slap your meat, Andrew?
We're off to a flying start. But yeah, that was Mother, and the song's called Verbatim, and yeah, I mean they're ostensibly pop, but just really interestingly done, interesting music. It's something original.
I think they've been. It sounds to me like quite. They are challenging their own concepts of, and they're questioning their own concepts of what it means to be straight and male, and and these sort of things. But they're also, I don't know, there is a sort of underlying aspect of going. It's still trying to cling on to a rock and roll, slightly misogynistic relationship with sex.
Let me give you one of the other lines, which when I first heard it, because Izzy loves playing music, and when I first heard this line, it made me laugh, and then I sort of realised it's actually quite dark and weird. So the next one, I live by a hospital. Again, really going for the proper. This is nearly as bad as when we were doing rap lyrics. I live by a hospital, and every day I go walking past its sickly windows. I see people dying there, but my tender age makes it hard to care. There's an incinerator and a big smokestack. It's a phallic symbol, and it makes me laugh. I don't know. It's just sort of it's sort of weaving around. It's nice to have lyrics that aren't massively straightforward, but you can kind of get or sort of get a bit of a feel for. So he lives by a hospital. He's used to seeing death, but he's saying that I'm so young that I can't see that as being something that identifies with my situation. And then the immediate bit of going, there's a massive chimney and it looks like a cock. just to round up the stanza. But I think it's all quite interesting. So there you go.
Surrealist. They're like bored. There was a thing. Was it? Someone was telling. Meta-modernist is a school of art expression, really. So modernism, everything is symbolic. Postmodernism, nothing is symbolic and everything's ironic. Metamodernism is some things ironic, some things are sort of earnest. And
we say we've got no educational content in this podcast.
Something like that. And this sounds maybe a bit metamodernist, should we say?
Maybe.
Like, it's some of it is pretty like on the ball, and then he just throws in a curveball. Just to make you go like, what the fuck? Okay, I don't completely get this. And you can sort of like read every other line and take them seriously, and then just sort of go, your Freudian analysis of chimney stacks leaves something to be desired, darling.
One bit I just thought about more is saying about what defines a straight man straight. Is it a boxer in the briefs or a 12-ounce steak? Now, you don't suppose he means the breed of dog boxers?
He could be. I don't know. I don't. My question is more like, what do you mean by 12-ounce steak? I mean, they both sound like quite aggressively macho things.
But it's sung with a very non-macho vocal delivery. Not so much this song, but a lot of the other songs. I think the band is 2 men, 2 women, and they all share vocals. And they do that really nice thing where the backing vocals are actually forming another instrument rather than just ooh ah ooh ah. They're actually like got other parts of the song going on. I've just realised as well.
Brand new Combine Harvester.
That was the song that was number 1 the day I was born. This is absolutely true.
That explains so much.
I've just noticed as well, it reminds me of No Scrubs by... No Scrubs by Destiny's...
Destiny's...
So listen.
Child. Should I know that? Sorry. No.
I wear women's underwear and then I go to...
No, it really doesn't, does it? Right, shall we move on to the theme?
I said something wrong. But
you said something wrong.
Yeah, I'm going to ignore me.
Okay.
That was stupid.
So, give us this week's theme.
This week's theme is compilations. And all in all their glory. And I've gone through 3 different compilation styles, 4 different compilation styles, to celebrate them all, because I do love them in different ways.
As ever, we've probably taken quite different tacks on this, but if you've got 3 different styles, I've kind of gone with the styles thing as well. Compilation albums hold... It's really interesting. In the mainstream, compilation albums are a shallow cash-in on whatever's already popular. So in the UK, we have the Now series. Now, that's what I call music. And it's
but who didn't love the Now series when they were 10?
Oh, my dad had Now too. Or still has. No, I think I might have had it. I think I might have it now. And the only song I wasn't allowed to listen to was Relax by Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
because
I was
it might
banned
make you.
from that song. I don't. I think my dad just didn't like the Trevor Horn production on it.
It's challenging.
Let's go for your first one, and then let's have a chat.
Despite all the underachievers, from the government to the tractor guy, the ladies also know reasons why. My only guess, they must be high. I want to put an end to all of them, but I don't know where to begin, 'cause I'm pretty sure the world's on heroin. The world's on heroin. Everybody is standing in my way. I try to use my brain. Stupidity is thrown in my face. I'm a
Sorry, I had a burp coming. I didn't want to burp down the microphone. Who was that, Sam?
That was the All. That was All, also known as the Descendants -1, with The World's on Heroin. And
What
that
compilation album was that on?
Well, it's from Punkorama, but which Punkorama? It's a good question. It's the first one I bought. Yeah, come on.
It's from an album called Mass Nerder.
Yeah,
by All.
it's one of the best. It's Punkorama 3, and on that is also it's from Epitaph Records, and it was their mid-90s format of selling. So the Punkorama series went to 10, and it ran from 94 to 2005, and I bought maybe 2 or 3 of them. And they were all pretty cheap, if I remember correctly. This was part of when the pop punk boom, when these compilations were basically promotional materials for these sort of the stuff on the record label. And it's again, it's like so it's NoFX, the Dwarves, All, the Bouncing Souls, H2O, Agnostic Front, Cramps are on there, Rancid. Where's Wayne Kramer's on it? Down by Law, Oscar.
What, from MC5?
Yeah.
Wow.
Pulley, Pennywise, Bad Religion, and these and I love, and this is sort of my ode to them, because that was the first one I bought, and it was the one that sort of introduced me in some ways to a whole world of punk rock stuff, and or at least sort of Californian punk rock stuff. That alongside the Fat Wreck compilations, I love those things because they were cheap and they introduced you to a whole load of things, and they would have things that you can't find on the albums, even if you can find, there'd always be 1 or 2 things that you can't find on albums, and they'd always try and put, they'd always try to get like their more important bands, and there were 3 of these so there's Fat Wreck, and then there's Epitaph, and then there's also Hellcat Records, which is the record label run by Tim Armstrong, which focused much more like ska and ska punk sort of stuff. They had things like the Scatterlights on it in Hellcat Records. You use it as a tool to it wasn't just, this is our label stuff. This was also a tool sometimes to sort of introduce people who would buy these things to like a bit more of the history even of the genre. Joe Strummer was on the Hellcat stuff as well, when he was doing his Mascalera stuff. And then there's also on the extreme metal side, there was the Contaminated series by Relapse Records, which introduced me to like what I would call like the extreme sort of stuff, like Dillinger Escape Plan and Cephalic Carnage and stuff like that. And I loved that stuff because it was, and he always had a lot of them had a thing on the back saying don't sell for more than this. If you buy it for more than this, you're being ripped off, and that's cool.
Which both NoFX and Rancid apparently abandoned when they did their split EP. I can remember there being so much fuss about that at the time, that they were ripping off the kiddies. I didn't think it was that expensive. I don't remember it being like crazy expensive. The NoFX song on this, so we look at Punkorama 3, which was released June 30th, 1998. 62 minutes and 30 seconds long. This is all from memory. And the NoFX song, they had a song on it called "We Threw Gasoline." We threw gasoline on the fire, and now we have stumps for arms and now eyebrows. No eyebrows, which is probably about the most NoFX song title. If they had something about lesbians in there, that would be the absolute most NoFX song title ever, wouldn't it?
Yes, lesbians and paraplegics.
They go NoFX at oeuvre.
Well, paraplegics are on there. We have stumps for arms now.
So, I suppose so.
Yeah, paraplegics are involved. And
I'm really interested in that list. What was the Wayne Kramer stuff like?
I don't know. I can't remember. I can't remember actually. I mean, this is why I chose Worlds on Heroin. I remember. I don't remember that many things from this album. I remember Everybody's Girl by the Dwarves, Ever Ready by H2O, but I don't remember a lot.
No, there's a lot of stuff.
The Fat Red stuff stayed with me more, I think.
I looked at this first of all and I thought, wow, that bloke who took over from Ed O'Brien on Crystal Maze was on this. And I was, no, that's Ed Tudor Pole, not 10-foot pole.
Yeah.
Two entirely different propositions. Right, should we have my first one?
Go for it. Yeah.
This is nice. I like it when these episodes have a good bit of variety.
It's got me scared, but so sweet. Got something. I'm winking at you. Gonna make you notice. I'm gonna use my arms. I'm gonna use my legs. I'm gonna use my style. I'm gonna use my senses. I'm gonna use my fingers. I'm gonna use my imagination.
Do you want to have a guess?
That was the Suedes.
With the Suedes, yeah.
I don't know the song.
Oh, Brass in Pocket by the Pretenders. So this is from an album called Ruby Tracks, which was a compilation album put out by the NME to celebrate 40 years of publication. And I'm sure they said something at the end like, and here's to the next 40 years. That didn't work out. But it's quite a bonkers album. Looking back on it now, the fact that this sort of thing came together, when did it come out? 1992. So this came together pre-internet. And you think the amount of phone calls and organisation there must have been. They couldn't just put all the bands in a WhatsApp group and get it done. But that Suede, still with Bernard Butler, and very much doing Suede at the time. I think it's before Suede had really sort of found their feet. I think it took them a little while. But if I run through so the whole shtick of it is all the bands had to cover a song that was had been number one in the British charts. So there's quite a lot of tracks. So I'm going to hammer through these, okay? And I want you, Sam, to put your hand up if you want me to stop to discuss any of them, okay? So first of all, we had the Wonder Stuff doing 'Cause I Love You. G's and Mary Chain doing Little Red Rooster. Fatima Mansions doing Everything I Do for You, which is quite fun. The Wedding Present doing Cumberland Gap. Danny Minogue doing Show You the Way to something or other. Blue Aeroplanes doing Bad Moon Rising. Teenage Fan Club doing Mr. Tambourine Man. Blur doing Maggie May, which I am going to stop there because Alex James isn't on that.
Oh, he refused on the grounds.
He refused on the grounds that he was never going to play Rod Stewart. So he's not on it. They just rather damningly used a really basic synth bass sound instead of him.
Well, fuck me for Alex James having some moral compass.
I know for a cheese making Tory,
yeah.
He's he clearly didn't want to. He clearly had stronger morals back then. House of Love doing Rock Your Baby. Bizarrely, EMF doing Shut Up Your Face.
That'd be good.
I want to look some of these up just to kind of be like, wow, what's that? Tori Amos doing Ring My Bell. Mark Almond doing Like a Prayer, which I assume is the Madonna thing. Ned's Atomic Dustbin doing I've Never Been to Me. Ned's Atomic Dustbin is such a strange anomaly in I sort of think back and think, did that really happen? Do you know Ned's Atomic Dustbin?
I know the name, but
They had two bass players and they played Wild Thing on the Word with Oliver Reed. Jesus Jones doing Voodoo Child, which I think generally just don't bother trying to cover Hendrix. Just don't. Just leave it. Just you're not going to make it better. You're just going to make people hate you. Johnny Marr, and I think, Johnny Marr did The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly with Billy Duffy, which is kind of interesting. The Fall. Want to have a guess what The Fall did?
What was that? Bill Oddie song.
Bill Oddie, put your hands all over my body. That one, no.
No.
The Fall did a cover of Xanadu, which I think I'm going to need to hear.
Bill Oddie, what? Is that an actual
You never heard
song?
that before?
No.
It's Erotic by Madonna. Perfectly fits Bill Oddie, put your hands all over my body. I'm sure I must have uttered that to you before at some point in the past. So, Xanadu by The Fall, which is something I'm going to want to hear. World Party, World Without Love, Electric Music, Baby Come Back. Vic Reeves doing Vienna by...
that'd be good.
Freddie Mercury. Well, the thing is, Vic Reeves got a decent voice. I mean, it's not Freddie Mercury, but it's probably... I'm going to go look that up. We've got Curve doing I Feel Love.
Oh, Freddie Mercury didn't do Vienna.
Oh, of course not. It's Midure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're thinking Barcelona, my darling.
It's all
Barcelona.
It's not even the same country, actually, is it?
It's all Europe. It's all it's all that place, that England used to be part of.
Billy Bragg doing When Will I See You Again? You know exactly how that would sound.
Yeah.
The Mission doing Atomic by Blondie. And again, you kind of know what that's going to sound like. St. Etienne, Stranger in Paradise, Aztec, Camera Paradises. To be honest, there's some bands I don't know. Ooh, Senseless Things doing a cover of Apache. I think that's got to be worth looking up, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I did not get Senseless Things at all at the time. I couldn't understand it, but I've heard some bits of Senseless Things that I think still very much of its time, like the acceptable face of early 90s punk. But the bass playing in a lot of the Senseless Things is absolutely remarkable. Just phenomenal, although he does get a serious number of minus points because he played a headless bass, which is unacceptable. Next, we've got Carter USM doing Another Brick in the Wall, which is interesting. Tears for Fears doing Ashes to Ashes, which Frank and Walters doing I'm a Believer, which would just be what the Frank and Walters sound like anyway. Yeah, Suede doing Brass in Pocket, Kingmaker doing Lady Madonna, The Farm doing Don't You Want Me. Sorry, someone just walked in. Richard, do you remember the Ruby Tracks compilation? No. Okay, Richard, who just walked in, doesn't remember it. I thought he would because we're roughly the same age. Boy George doing My Sweet Lord, which I think is George Harrison's name.
Yeah, that's
Bob Geldof doing Sunny Afternoon, which I just never want to hear.
Oh,
no. Never want to hear that. Cud doing Down Down. Sinead O'Connor doing Secret Love, which is probably actually really good. In Spiral Carpets doing Tainted Love, which I never need to hear. Ride doing The Model by Kraftwerk, which I think I need to hear because it will just be so shit. I like Ride, but that's at least they chose something completely out of their comfort zone. Suede doing Brass in Pocket it just sounds like Suede. Got Tin Machine on there. Who I mean by Tin Machine? Good. I'm glad, because at the time I remember thinking Tin Machine are so bad, no human being should ever remember they exist. And clearly, your generation doesn't remember they exist. They were a bad band. It was...
Oh, it's the David Bowie band. I do know them.
Yeah, with a bunch of other people, but it was not good. He basically anyway. And then something that I thought was really odd choice at the time, considering what was going on in their world, is Manic Street Preachers doing a cover of "Suicide Is Painless," the theme from MASH, which I just thought, oh, that's just a bit on the nose. I still think that's odd that they did that.
Maybe they were, helps them process the whole thing.
It could well be that kind of thing. Nicky Wire, whenever he pops up on a podcast or an interview somewhere, he's still really interesting to listen to. He was on Keris Matthews' show on Six Music. He admits that they were very angry at that time. He said, we were so angry at everything. If anyone tried to be nice to us, we were just angry. So that's my awful Welsh accent, which we'll move on from. Right, well, I've just read 40 tracks, so we probably ought to play another song, and I'm going to play this one of yours. God, who's that?
That's Lieback with the song 2525 from the album NATO. And it's not necessarily a compilation, but it's actually more of a mixtape. But I just wanted to say that they function very much like compilations when they come from friends that you respect the music taste of. And this was a compilation where I was in my early 20s. Friend would occasionally just randomly give me compilations of stuff that I might not have sort of come across because it wasn't on just like the pop punk metal sort of world at the time. And this gave me a lifelong appreciation and love for Lieback, who are one of the greatest bands to have ever sort of surfaced anywhere. They are a complete just the most ridiculous thing ever. Their concerts are like communist rallies, and they're basically an art project that also does a lot of like dance music, electro stuff. But the lyrics of the song are amazing. In the year 1994, war goes on just like before. War goes on, it never ends. War brings bigger dividends. In the year 1995, brand new war is born to die. From total damage to damage limitation, fear is the key to defend the nation. In 1996, there is no need for politics. Seeing life with unseeing eyes, seeing man through the
You're doing that like 10 times faster than the actual track.
Yes, yeah. But 1990, in the year 1997, the boil bursts in the face of heaven. Dragon tears washed away thy youth. Wash thy hands of eternal truth. It's basically damning. It's incredibly damning to sort of mankind. But yeah. So, sort of mixtapes made by friends who they function quite a lot like the same way as compilations do. And this was on that, and I love Lieback, and I don't know why I didn't go and see them when they hit Helsinki. But
they are a band that I do want to explore more, because they did stuff with Melvins, I want to say.
No, I don't think so. They're too weird for the Melvins. The Melvins are a bit too straightforward for them.
But I was wondering who did the original year 2525. It's Zager and Evans, or Zager and Evans. Who I know the song, but I've never heard the Lieback version before.
Yeah, they do cover a lot of songs. I would say don't listen to their music. Go and see them live. That's the best way to experience Lieback. They are a treat for the live experience. The albums are fine. There's a lot of good music on the albums, but as a live experience, they're second to none.
I'm just quickly looking up the next one. So tell us more about Lieback, because I've lost me bits and bobs that I wanted.
So the liebacks are sort of they go back to, they're from Slovenia, they're Yugoslavian, and they go back to, they're pioneers of really industrial music, and they're big. I think they're quite a big influence on things like Rammstein, like European industrial like metal.
Oh, I can see a line between them and Rammstein. Yeah,
And and it is. Oh yeah, there's a whole section. Laibach is often cited as influence for the popular German New Deutsche Hart band, Rammstein. They're very, very weird. And my friend said he went to see them one time a few years ago, and the same friend who put them on the compilation.
not the one with the bread knife.
Not the one with the bread knife, a different one. And he said he went to the cinema. It was an art house cinema, and it was just sort of like, sort of something to do in the afternoon before going to the pub and then going to the gig. And he said they all sat there in the front row, all in their costumes, just sort of taking it incredibly seriously.
Brilliant. You want that. You want people who are going to commit. Right. As in the interest of contrast, here's my next track. Do you know who that was?
No, but it made me think that not enough people in extreme music use that vocal delivery anymore.
No, you're right. And that was a band called Beecher. And the song is Mega Drive versus SNES. And this came from a CD I got sent by someone I knew through zines, I think, or I made badges for him. I can't remember which. I think his name was Mark. And he started a record label called In at the Deep End Records. And this came out in 2009. He sent me this CD, and it was so badly, he hadn't mastered it properly, so all the songs were different volumes. But the collection of bands he got together were really interesting. And this is back in, it's only 2009, but what really cool labels used to do is they would send you something, then they'd give you a call to talk to you about it. What did you think? Which of the bands did you like? And it wasn't like in a PR agent pressure hassling kind of way. It was just like someone who was really enthusiastic about music, and just his only drive at the time was just to get bands that he loved heard by more people, which I think is awesome. But a lot of the stuff on this album scared the shit out of me. So Beecher, I had never heard anything like that. And I can remember it coming on and literally like just going, what? It's too much. I'd never heard anything that extreme before. What was that?
Oh, that's the intro from their song "Dead for Weeks." I like that so much. I've actually highlighted.
Hey,
Breaking the Fourth Wall album.
I'm gonna go listen to it, because the only version. It was a surprise to me to hear that song that clearly, because it was so ropey on this CD I got sent. So I'm going to hammer you through the rest of the bands on there. And again, put your hand up if there's a band you've heard of, because this is 15 years old. There was Tortuga, Celosis, Romeo Must Die, The Casino. Yep, you've heard of Romeo Must Die. So tell us about them.
I don't know, but I heard.
Okay. The Casino Brawl, Shaped by Fate, Suicide Silence, 1000 Hertz. Which one?
Suicide Silence.
Okay,
I think
so
1000 Hertz as well. Suicide Silence are like a metalcore band. They're still going. They're quite big these days. I remember getting their first EP sent as a promo. I was sort of blown away by the sort of the visceral violence of it, and then lost interest in them.
it was like the violence and aggression of Beecher that completely. It took me a little while to realise that I actually really liked it. So yeah, Architects.
Yeah,
I think they're
big now, aren't they?
Yeah, they were the first band on the label. What happened with the label is there were several bands who he released an album, and then that was basically they immediately got signed to a big label. He did have a knack for doing it. Send More Paramedics.
Yes.
Yeah, you can't fail but remember them. I saw them play at Reading Festival, and then they split up pretty much instantly.
I've got the often mentioned Al loves them, but I could.
Oh, really?
I never really got into them. I think I was basically so anti-gimmick that it
I
just
used to
stuck
come
to
on
me.
covered in blood, and it was all about zombies.
They did the whole they did the whole zombie chic, and I was so anti-gimmick it just annoyed me.
I'm not going to have fun at metal gigs.
They were crossover. They were much more associated with the punk scene than they were the metal scene.
Oh, I think most of these bands were from the punk scene, but sounded metal.
Yeah.
Erinda, Cirrhosis, Centurion, Buzzkill, Sanson,
Buzzkill,
the Wireless,
maybe Cirrhosis, maybe.
The Wireless Stores. They had a song at the time. I sort of made friends with the Wireless Stores. Was one of those things where it was one guy who put a band around himself, and he'd been in a band that had been on a major and kind of got screwed by them, but. The quality of the Wireless Store songs was so good. They were not metal or punk. They were more like early 90s, slightly jangly guitars, but with a bit of an edge. Right, then there's Zombie Apocalypse, Devils, The Break-In, The Letters Organized, Bait, Beecher, Everything for Some, The Nothing, The Once Over Twice. They've missed some out on this list I'm looking at because Love Junk, the Ipswich band Love Junk, were also on this, playing their kind of Husker Du replacements kind of thing. But yeah, I'm going to go look up Beecher. So that was my example of that. That is my example of a compilation album just really reminding me of a very specific period in my life. And hearing that sort of extreme metal for the first time and being confused,
A bit excited,
but slightly aroused.
Yeah, that's how good music should make you feel, I think.
Yeah, let's have your next song. So much to love about this. Just tell us who it was.
That was Marcia Griffiths with Feel That Jumpin'. And that was from the Studio One Rockers compilation put out by Soul Jazz Records. And this was a Soul Jazz puts out these sort of compilations, like crate digger compilations is what you might call them. And there's a lot, and they sort of, I think, I don't know much about that sort of thing, but there's an aspect where they and a few other record labels like them have, or since, have done a lot of work to introduce people to the history of music from that goes beyond, I would say, America and the UK particularly. But also particularly sort of what's called global South countries. So there's a lot of stuff from Nigeria rock records from the 1960s and 70s, and Ghana and Ethiopian jazz and soul jazz. Also, they also do stuff that features like no wave New York stuff, and they did really obscure punk movements and from the 80s, and so it's not just like crate digging of the other, but it's also crate digging of stuff that just never got the due in commercial terms that maybe it should have been given. And this was a compilation that my brother bought, and I loved it, and it introduced me to like rocker, sort of rocker reggae and whatever it's called. and dub music and stuff like that. And
Just
in
dancehall?
a way that actually I found a bit off-putting in the Clash. When they did White Man and Hammersmith Ballet, and they're sort of going, yeah, okay, this is a bit clean and nice and good, and yeah, but then you get this stuff, and there's something really cool about it.
I thought it'd be, when I sat down to choose my tracks for this episode, I thought it'd be really difficult, and I found the truth was the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Complete and utter opposite. I was quite overwhelmed with choice, and I really love some of the choices you've made, particularly the Studio One choice, because these came out while I had my record shop with Ricky from Red Flag 77, and he completely introduced me to reggae. And I can remember the first summer we were open, it was so hot, really, really, really hot summer. And our shop was tiny, whiny, little tiny place, but we had a half decent stereo system. I can remember it being too hot to be in the shop for long periods of time. And we were in a position where we could have the door open and blast music out, and no one really lived that close to it, so no one cared. And loads of people were always walking past the shop, and I can just remember spending so much time sat out the front of the shop listening to this and the Trojan compilations.
Yeah.
And that was when CDs had suddenly got really cheap to make.
Yeah.
And this is like the age of Captain Oi putting out everything again, but all the reggae stuff, I got really into like some fairly modern dub that was being put out at the same time. And I still love those albums. I'd like to own them. There's like really good Studio One box sets. They're like 5 CDs and like 200 tracks.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good investment. That'd be a good use of anyone's money. You say that, one of the things I like about these sort of crate digging compilations, and they highlight one every week on Six Music, Lauren Laverne does, is when they find stuff that perhaps wouldn't have been heard by all that many people at the time, but was just really good. So this sort of, not quite Fela Kuti, but a lot of African bands, African compilations get chosen on Six Music, and you hear the music, especially sort of early 70s African music, it's really fucking good.
But it's also
really good.
It's also that thing of like everybody, Fela Kuti is sort of he stands alone because because he is well known in Europe and America, but he didn't exist in isolation.
No, of course it was impossible for him to.
And it's the same with like there's a few big heavy hitters, and I think England is quite good with its understanding of like Jamaican music, at least, probably not the wider West, West Indies, but Jamaican music at least. But these compilations serve to sort of like give a context for what Bob Marley and the Wailers were doing, and also Lovers Rock, and the other people who did hit big, and they did occasionally hit big, and it's really something that I think is they're really good history lessons, because it makes you understand, one, the influence of Western music, how it got around, but also the fact that people don't sit on their asses waiting for people to come to them. They entertain themselves. And this is what I'm partly, this isn't just like, the global South. Europe is full of it as well. There's full of great bands that the English we will never hear because they don't sort of get played in England, and they don't speak, they don't sing in England because they're not adhering to a certain sort of white aesthetic, but also they don't sing in English. They just don't have the same marketing appeal as things, and it's sort of interesting when you get a band that does sort of break a little bit into that world. But anyway, the thing is that this is the fun thing about living in a different country, though. It's like you understand how self-sufficient the Finnish music world is in so many ways. They're not. People aren't here sitting waiting for these bands to come over. People entertain themselves, and they're quite adept at doing it. And we miss the genius of places beyond our borders and beyond American borders and Canadian borders these days, because by limiting ourselves to those things that are put out by record labels and
I absolutely thoroughly agree, and it's something I always think I must make more of an effort to look for non-English language things. But going back to what you're saying about people not waiting for the music to come to them, one of the things I love about the birth of ska is, I'm simplifying the story, but there's Sister Ignatius, who was a nun who encouraged people like Bob Marley and other people to learn instruments, kind of to keep them out of trouble, more or less. And they ended up forming bands. I know Bob Marley had played on loads of records before he ever was known as a solo artist. But a simplistic way of I had it explained to me is that they had a real appetite for English music. But not just the pop songs. They had a real appetite for theme music for films and theme music for TV programs, British and American TV programs. But because they couldn't get the records, the local bands would learn the songs. And instead of going to like a DJ night, a disco night where people would be playing records, the records didn't exist. So you'd go and watch a band play the hits, which I think is so fucking cool. Is that what they call dancehall reggae? So you'd go and they'd play, a Beatles song, the Scatterlights. If anyone listening to this hasn't looked up this whole kind of oeuvre, just do a search for the Scatterlights, because the Scatterlights 60s output is Guns N' Navarone, it's Beatles songs, it's the theme from Dr. Kildare. It is just one of the most wonderful collections of sort of an interpretation of everything, because they didn't sort of seem to differentiate between whether something was pop or like a TV drama about doctors. Just like fuck it, it's all good, chuck it all in. So yeah, look at, I think out of this episode, this is, if we were to have a prize for best compilation, I think you've nailed this, Sam. Absolutely brilliant. Studio One, I'm so pleased you chose this. Incidentally, Feel Like Jumping by Marcia Griffiths. Anyone listening to this thinks you might recognise some parts of it. There's a good reason for that. It's been sampled by quite a lot of people. The most famous one is the bass line is doom doom dooga doom 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 dooga doom doom doom, which was sampled by Rebel MC for Ghetto Life in I can't remember when it was. I thought it says on my screen it's 98. I'm sure Rebel MC was 80s. Rebel MC and his but loads of songs, including House of Pain, they sampled that for Jump Around. Apparently, I can't quite picture that, but I'd like to think that Marcia Griffiths got a fucking great big PRS payment for that. But probably not. Well, like the real early days Beat Motel podcast, I did an episode without you about the Amen break, and that's been sampled something like 60,000 times. But yeah, they didn't get any money.
Yeah, right, but it was there's quite well documented. It was what's the is it? It's not Perfect Day. It's the Lou Reed song with the bass line. That's also Can I Kick It?
Walk on the Wild Side. Yeah.
Walk on the Wild Side. And the guy who's an English bassist, he just went, yeah, it was just a studio bassist, got paid a day's rate.
Well, the reason it sounds the way it does, he said you got paid twice if you played two instruments.
Yeah. So it's double bass and bass guitar, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I didn't know you didn't get any royalties. I think you should get mechanical royalties. But the thing is, these things weren't recorded in the way they are now.
Yeah.
But let's move on, because it's time to move on. Hear the drummer get wicked. Well, who was that, Sam?
NoFX.
Oh, so close. We might as well be.
Maybe you saw a name.
Again, Might as well be. It's Lagwagon with May 16th, but
Pretty chords, pretty chords.
pretty chords, and it's that sound. That is the sound of the early 2000s. I still refuse to call them the
No
noughties.
effects. That's the Fat Wreck.
Well, that's
signature.
from Fat Wreck Volume 4, Life in the Fat Lane.
Yeah. What's else on that one?
But I chose that. I'm not going to go on about it for long because I think you summed it all up with your first choice with the Punkorama. But I was friends with a guy called Wolfie, and he was friends with Fat Mike, and Fat Mike used to send him boxes of CDs whenever they came out compilation. They'd literally send him a box of 25 CDs and said, just give these to your friends. And Wolfie asked if I wanted one. I was like, what is it? He said, it's punk. And I was like, I don't really get punk. Punk to me at the time, this is about 2000, just meant people gobbing and the Sex Pistols. And I can remember putting this CD in and hearing that start to Lagwagon and just going, whoa, what is this? And it ruined my life. I'm going to run through the lineup ever so quickly. Lagwagon, Mad Caddies, No Use for a Name, Sick of It All, Consumed, British, Swinging Udders, Good Riddance.
Oh, Twat Called Morris is such a good song.
Yeah, Consumed, Twat Called Morris. I love that. I just assumed it was a play on A Town Called Malice by The Jam, just a twat called Morris.
Yeah. Swinging Utters, I love the Swinging Utters.
Yeah, Swinging Utters, brilliant. Good Riddance, it's a great song. Where's the fucking money, Keith? So I start. Friends All Rom, who were just like Australian No Effects. Strung Out, Avail, The Ataris, Tilt, Goober Patrol, again from Norwich, they are actually. No Effects, Snuff, Screeching Weasel, Me First and the Gimme Gimmies, and Wizzo. I mean, that is a solid lineup, even kind of looking back now.
I'm going to say to people, I don't know about the Epitaph stuff, but if you want to go back and sort of listen to all these things, they might be on the streaming services, but you can buy them direct from Fat Wreck for digital for $3.
$3? Oh, yeah.
Fucking good. Delivered the MP3s, they're not FLAC, but it's still fucking good.
Just the quality that did change my life. As much as the Studio One stuff made me fall in love in a very enveloping way, the Fat Music compilation, because I then got all the others. It turns out Wolfie just had boxes and boxes of these. I don't know if Fat Mike's listening to this and might be upset. He wasn't that good at distributing them, but this was, oh God, it just really opened my eyes. And I'd been playing in bands for many, many years and kind of enjoying myself. And then this opened up a whole world to me, an entire network of people. And this is when you and I were running Punk News, well, notionally running it. I don't think anyone actually really ran it. And just properly got into playing all over the place. And I've never played in a band that sounds anything like any of these bands, but it just, blew my world wide open more than I think any other compilation album.
Yeah, I'd go with. I mean, for me, the one that hit me was the one before that. Was the 1997 one, which was Physical Fatness, Fat Music Volume 3. Snuff, Whatever Happened to the Likely Lads. It's probably the only Snuff song I know in detail.
And Olive Me by No Effects.
Yeah. But it was also a point where Fat Wreck were doing so well, they signed bands from Germany and Japan and Britain.
High Standard were on My Sweet Dog. They were on Physical Fatness.
Propagandy was on that. 88 Fingers Louie, Go Away. What a song. Me First and the Gimme Gimmies, me and Julie down by the schoolyard. I have a lot of time for ridiculous cover bands like Me First and the Gimme Gimmies.
I love the... We sold a few copies of Me First and the Gimme Gimmies ruined Johnny's bar mitzvah.
They've got a new live album coming out, which is there's this tradition in sorry to interrupt you, Andrew. There's this tradition in sort of Latin US cultures where they celebrate people's 16th birthdays, like big style, and they played someone's 16th. What's it called? It sounds
well. The bar mitzvah one, the sleeve notes are pictures from the event. There's a lot of people looking very confused and disappointed.
Well, they did. So what's it called? Discography. The Me First and the Gimme Gimmies, Blow It at Madison's Queen Serena.
Ah,
And so far they've released 2 tracks. One of them, both actually, they did Dancing Queen. They sort of went for crowd pleasing, Take It In, but they also did a cover of Good For You by Olivia and that's like, you can actually hear people enjoy that.
You know what? We're a band.
Shut up.
actually, the Physical Fatness has got one of my favourite Dickies. I'm not a huge Dickies fan, but My Pop the Cop is so
That's
cool.
a great one.
I loved it at the time because I knew the Dickies' older stuff, which again, recording quality was never that good. So you've got songs like "You Drive Me Ape, You Big Gorilla," but a lot of generally everyone just wanted to hear them do the banana splits. But that "My Pop the Cop," the production's really good because.
Yeah.
Fat Wreck did spend a lot of money on production. That was such a massive step up.
It's all, like, it's all now Bill Stevenson's the Descendants drummer, an all drummer who does it all, a lot of it anyway.
Really?
And they've got it's like they got the technique down. And they figured it out. They figured out how to streamline that technique, which is one of. It must be one of the reasons why it sounds all the same is that they all went to the same producer. And
they do all sound the same, even the live and the dive ones. Right, we ought to have your next track, final track.
A new life is born. Somehow I had to make this.
that intro is so much better than the rest of the song.
So
It's magnificent. It's the Queens with Breakthrough.
no breakthrough.
And that
spelled
was
right.
on, for me, that's on Queen Greatest Hits 2. And this is my ode to best of compilations, because they are compilations in their own right. And if you are someone trying to get into bands, some bands are best left as best of compilations. If you're trying to get into bands, it's a great, actually, sometimes it's a really fucking great way to delve into a band. And it's and Queen 2 are 2 of the best ofs. The Queen 1 and 2 Greatest Hits are 2 of the best ofs compilations around. Even though it took me a long time to appreciate the Queen 80s stuff, because I went through a long phase of thinking any pop music released in the 80s was essentially shit.
Again, that's the period in which we grow up in. There's some of it I appreciate it for different reasons now. Queen, I think have we done, or were we going to do bands that are best of bands that are best as best ofs?
We this is on the list. It's still on the list.
On the long list. I've just used AI to work out. Sorry to go back to Physical Fatness again, but it's. I'm just remembering so many cool things about the album. Each band had its own cartoon strip as a different style of cartoon, and Goober Patrol were Hagar the Horrible, which is really obscure.
Oh, yeah.
Really obscure stuff. And NoFX, what did NoFX have? Sorry, I've got a list here. Peanuts. They were drawn as Peanuts. Snuff was Andy Cap, the old alcoholic racist wife beater. Yeah, the Dickies were Wizard of Oz. Propagandy were Dilbert, which I can remember just thinking was so brilliant. I always thought they were kind of one of the geeky bands, but I've worked out as well that Physical Fatness, I've used AI to work out the average track length. So out of all the tracks on the album, and there were 18, do you want to have a guess at the average track length?
2 minutes.
Oh, so close. 2 minutes 23. It's insanely short. Dear me.
No, I love punk. I think one of the reasons I love the only punk I can listen to is only progressive music I can listen to, or prog music I listen to, like No Means No, No Means No, and Minutemen, is because it's basically, here's the idea, next, move on. And you don't have to waft around going, let's just get the atmospherics right,
Well,
Charles.
they make punk rock like they're robbing a bank, in and out as fast as possible, and hope no one gets hurt.
That's also how I do sex.
Balakov. Oh man, right. I'm busting for a piss. So I'm going to play my last track. That was way too loud on my headphones. How was that for you?
Yeah, that's pretty loud. It sounded great though.
Oh, it's the Waxing Captors with Bringing the Beatles Back to Hamburg. Waxing Captors singer was Luke Littleboy, who's been a co-host on this in the past, a long time ago. And I chose this because it's something that I might do a solo episode on, but I had a friend called Andy something in Blackpool who put out a compilation album called The Ugly Truth About Blackpool, and it documented the previous 30 years of Blackpool alternative bands. So I decided to do the same in Ipswich, and we had a load of gigs. We had an interband charity football match, did loads of stuff to raise the money to put this album out. And I was shit at it. Basically, nothing happened for about 3 or 4 years till Jason and Rocky at Antigen Records basically said, if you've got the money, do you want us just do all the work? And I was like, all right. Because that also meant I didn't have to actually, be the one who turned people down who wanted to be on it. But I chose the Waxing Captors because they started knocking about gigs at town when they were like 14 or 15. And they bought the 8-track off my old band Junk Culture, and their recordings were always spirited but lo-fi in a really adorable kind of way. And then when Antigen started to get bigger, they went and recorded an album in the same studio that Porcupine Tree and Cradle of Filth and These Are In Times used, and they came out with this album that is absolutely ripping. It's so good. I find it and send you a link or send you a copy, because it's so odd but so much fun, and I think it's got so much energy, and it sounds to me like a lot of the modern sort of rock and roll mainstream kind of bands have never really quite managed to do with as much energy and as much experimentation. But I recommend anyone listening, I recommend looking up The Ugly Truth About Ipswich, because it is a 45-track album that was a lot of work, and it does document Ipswich from the 70s to, I guess, till about 2000-ish when it came out. But the first track on the album is Nick Kershaw, and we approached Nick Kershaw not expecting to get anything, and he just went, yeah, of course, and just gave us a track. I don't think he even meant we had to get everyone to sign a contract. He was just like, yeah, just do it, have it. No bother at all. There were other people who thought they were too good for it and said, I couldn't possibly be involved in something like that, who have since gone on to do nothing. Cradle of Filth get an honourable mention because Danny wanted to be on it, but genuinely couldn't because of the deal they had at the time. And this is going to make me unpopular if anyone in Ipswich is listening. The Addicts, we asked the Addicts for a track, and they said, one of them, and I'm not going to say which one of them said, you can only have a track if it's 2 CD compilation. We want to be track 1, CD 1. And Jason at Antigen is not the sort of person to be sort of bullied around stuff like this. So it's a 2-disc compilation. The first disc is called CD A, and the first track is Nick Kershaw. The second disc, the other disc, is called CD 1, and the first track is The Addicts. He managed to find a way to make them CD 1, track 1, when they're actually the start of the other disc. I am most amused by. I really need a wig. So I'm gonna. I think we've fairly wrapped it up. This was wonderful, actually. This was a. I don't really like stuff that's too misty-eyed and wandering down memory lane, but it's been really positive. It's been a really good thing to do, and I've got a load of bloody stuff I want to go and listen to now.
Lovely, proper job.
Right. I'm about all I got to say, really. So I'm going to say goodbye. You can say goodbye.
Bye.